Hi, everyone. Welcome back to First Page Fridays. I decided to change which book I was going to talk about today because on Wednesday, Gary Paulsen, the author of Hatchet, passed away. He was 82, and he always said that a librarian saved his life. And in fact, that books, reading them and writing them, changed his life. So I'm going to read to you a little bit from Gary Paulsen's Hatchet first chapter. Starts with Brian getting on a plane. Brian Robeson stared out the window of the small plane at the endless green northern wilderness below. It was a small plane, a Cessna 406, a bush plane, and the engine was so loud, so roaring, so consuming, and so loud that it ruined any chance for conversation. Not that he had much to say. He was 13 and the only passenger on the plane, with a pilot named, what was it, Jim or Jake or something, who was in his mid 40s and who had been silent as he worked to prepare for takeoff. In fact, since Brian had come off the small airport in Hampton, New York to meet the plane, driven by his mother, the pilot had spoken only 5 words to him: get in the pilot seat, which Brian had done. They had taken off, and that was the last of conversation. And from then on, Gary Paulsen gives you Brian's background, what he's thinking. And what he's thinking is about the fact that his parents are divorcing. And suddenly, something happened to his to the pilot. The pilot was having a heart attack. Brian had been in the shopping mall with his mother when a man in front of Paisley's store had suffered a heart attack. He had gone down and screamed about his chest. An old man, much older than the pilot. Brian knew. The pilot was having a heart attack. And even as the knowledge came into Brian's brain, he saw the pilot slam into the seat one more time. One more awful time, he slammed back into the seat, and his right leg jerked, pulling the plane to the side with a sudden twist, and his head fell forward, and the spit came. Spit came from the corners of his mouth, and his legs contracted up into the seat, and his eyes rolled back into his head until there was only white. Only wait for his eyes, and the smell became worse. It filled the cockpit, and all of it so fast, so incredibly fast, that Brian's mind could not take it in at first. Could only see it in stages. The pilot had been talking just a moment ago, complaining about the pain. He had been talking. Then the jolts came, and the jolts that took the pilot back had come, and now Brian sat there with a strange feeling of silence in the thrumming roar of the engine, a strange feeling of silence and of being alone. Brian was stopped. He was stopped. Inside, he was stopped. He could not think past what he saw, what he felt. All was stopped. And the very core of him, at the very center of Brian Robeson, was a stopped and stricken with a white flash of horror and terror so intense that his breathing, his thinking, and nearly his heart had stopped. Stopped. Seconds passed, seconds that became all of his life, and he began to know what he was seeing, began to understand what he saw, and what was worse, so much worse, he wanted to make his mind freeze again. He was sitting in a bush plane, roaring 7,000 feet above the northern wilderness, with a pilot who had suffered a massive heart attack and who was either dead or in something close to a coma. He was alone in the roaring plane with no pilot. He was alone, alone. So if you want to know what happens to Brian, whether he makes it, um, and all that's going on with him, I really challenge you to read Gary Paulsen's Hatchet. It is an amazing book. And maybe just like books and librarians changed Gary Paulsen's life, they might change yours.